Lori Fleckett of Soltar Solutions, and I'm here today on Focus Forward. I have a really interesting show, but before we go there, I just want to talk about the soul of success. My good friend and mentor, Jack Canfield, and another one of my friends, Wendy Burrell, are contributors to this compilation of great stories about health, wealth, and success. I know a lot of people in this book. It is wonderful. I really think that you might want to pick it up because I can't stop reading it. So, The Soul of Success, Jack Canfield, Wendy Burrell, and today I have a very good friend with me today, and he's going to tell us all about preparing for a mortgage. And today I want you to help me welcome, AJ Kozlak from CMG Financial. AJ, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me, Lori. I'm excited as well. Not quite as excited as you are because you're an excitable person. But two reasons. The main one is, number one, I have the opportunity, thanks to you, to talk about what I'm extremely passionate about, and that is helping people achieve the dream of home ownership. It's one I'm extremely passionate about. Did you know this interesting fact, by the way, that if you compared the average renter to a homeowner, that the difference in net worth between them is 31 to 46% higher in a homeowner.
Really?
That equates to approximately $200,000 more on average in net worth between the average renter and homeowner.
Isn't that a fun fact?
That's an exciting fact.
It's a very exciting fact.
And my second reason I'm extremely excited today is this is my first time ever on TV, just so you know. So thank you again for that opportunity.
Well, you're welcome. You're doing a great job.
Thank you very much.
So I want to dive right in because I want to cover a lot of ground. I want to give these people out there, our viewers, so much information about how they can maybe even trade from being a renter to a homeowner or even trade up in their home. So tell us, how do people prepare for this? Because I know it's a big, long, it can be harrowing process. How do people prepare?
That's a great question, Lori. So the first thing is although there is a longer process and everything, to me everything's just about information. And the more information that a consumer has, the more confidence they're going to have, the better decisions they're going to be able to make, and not just short term over the next 6 to 12 months, but long term. I like to look at both horizons, kind of where they're at in their family situation today, and maybe that's going to change 4 to 5 to 6 years from now. So my goal is always to make sure I understand their specific goals, their specific needs, and then provide the best financing solution to meet their needs, again, both short-term and long-term. And I'd say the number one piece that people, I think they're starting to get a little bit more educated on is credit, and that's one of the things I offer is making sure we take a look at their credit, we do a free checkup on that, and then just making sure that they understand where their credit's at, why it is, and then I always make sure to spend time giving my customers ideas and suggestions on how they can improve their credit, again, both short-term and long-term.
Well, this is great. I think everybody needs that information.
For sure.
No matter where you are in your life, you need to know what your credit status is and also how you can improve it. One of the questions I have is when you are just thinking about purchasing maybe your first home. I think it's a little bit different purchasing your first home than if you already have a home and you're, trading in or purchasing up.
For sure.
So say you're purchasing your first home. What are the things that you would recommend that people do maybe even before they contact you?
For sure. Great question. So first you can do some basic searches. I know on my personal website that I have, there's great information regarding purchasing, refinancing. It's got mortgage calculators on there so you can figure out how much your payment's going to be based on an estimated purchase price. The property tax information is typically on the website. So there's a lot of great data online. Just make sure you're on the right sources and it's got good information.
So let me ask you a question
Sure.
before you go further. How much does it cost? Do you have is there a fee associated with going on your website and getting that information? Or, how much does that cost to do that?
Awesome question. It's free of charge. It's free of charge to do any research, and quite honestly, it's free of charge to meet with me.
Okay.
And do a free mortgage checkup. If you don't mind, I was just going to grab this flyer here, and it's one of the things I offer all my customers, and it's basically a free mortgage checkup. So this is for somebody that obviously currently owns a house But even if they didn't own a house, or if they're doing a first-time home buyer, kind of go in an in-depth process, understanding them specifically and their needs and their family and their household, and then provide the solutions again, or look at different opportunities. But your specific question was, when is the time? I mean, to me, now is the time. So whether you're looking to buy in 2 months or 12 months or 2 years, it's just all about getting information. And my goal is, I don't need to help somebody or sell somebody today. I don't like to be sold, so I don't sell people. My job is to educate, inspire, and get people passionate and excited to want to be homeowners or do something more.
Well, when I met you in your office, I can tell you right now, I felt so like you really were interested in me as a person. You know, a lot of times, and this would be my third home, purchasing my third home, so it's a very different experience than a first-time home buyer. I have never felt really that people were as interested in my personal goals, my financial goals, and also making the process easy, because the process 3 out of 3 times hasn't been that easy. It's almost been like I would have purchased more homes, but I really didn't want to go through the process, because the process can be very harrowing. But when I started the process with you, it felt really very calm and very low key. We, traded information, and really you took the time to get in depth into what I wanted, to really help me to reach my goals. And that is so important, because your home is a major part of your life in many financially, your environment. It's so important, and also for the rest of your family as well. So I felt really very cared for and very low key. I felt calm, which I never experienced that before, so that was a new one. So how is it that you create this environment in an office that allows people to feel so at ease? I mean, what do you do to make that happen?
What I do is, I guess it's just it's a business philosophy, it's a life philosophy, and that's basically living by the golden rule, which is treating people how I would want to be treated. I have a great connection with a lot of my customers. They're important to me. I think it's a great responsibility that I have to help them out in this process. And specifically, I think a lot of them, I treat them like they were my family or close friends. That's my mindset. That's what I want to provide to them. And knowing that, I just want to set them up and explain to them, again, if I try to assume that I'm on the other side of the table or the desk, and just give them that information that they want. Everybody wants some little, maybe more information than others, but I'm going to provide the same consistent information, provide them the resources, and more importantly, I welcome questions, I welcome emails, whatever it is they want. I want my customers to never feel as though they're bothering me. And I've had customers, they're like, I'm sorry for bothering you, AJ. I know this is my 15th question. And I'm like, first of all, it's number 19. I don't track that. But I'm like, no, please, there's no limit. I want to make certain that we go through this. I think I once did kind of an average, just to look at emails, phone calls. I would say on average, when I meet with my customers from pre-approval till the end of the process, at least 150 contacts.
Wow.
Emails. I just want to really hold their hands, check in once they're under contract, making sure, again, we get together right away, because I'm always of the opinion, move fast in terms of what we can control, because there's so many other variables that my customers, we talk about what we control, and then we'll let the other people, do what they're going to do, but then we're always ahead of schedule. We meet weekly, we talk weekly. Again, there's more than that, especially first-time home buyers. We probably talk more than that. My processor does a great job doing that as well. But it's really just high touch, high service, I want them to feel confident of what they're doing. I want them to feel excited about being a homeowner. And I want them to think about packing up their house, maybe changing schools for their children. They don't need to worry about financing. That's my job.
That's awesome. So what about if people have maybe less than perfect credit, or they have bankruptcies or situations? Can you still help people? Is there still, or is there just, you have to have great credit, or you're kind of a renter?
No, that's a great question. So people have had, especially we came out of our recession that we went through, so a lot of people had setbacks. And to me, that's all about education. And a lot of times I've worked with customers that maybe were denied by a lender or they just didn't know, they're embarrassed of it. And I'm never going to judge somebody. My job is to help them. My job is to help them get down the path. And whether it be a homeowner or a renter, ideally at the homeowner someday, but I'm going to help walk them through that process. We have tools and systems to help guide them, engage them on specifically what they can do to improve their credit score. And again, I want to help them get qualified, but then I also want to make sure they feel educated and informed. So even after they buy their house, these are things you can do to make sure you're going to continue to improve your credit score, because that impacts everything you buy. Cars, credit cards, homeowners insurance. Depending on what you do for a job, it can impact your employment. It's a big thing, and I want people to feel very confident about where they're at. And again, great thing about our country, you get second chances with credit. You can sometimes get third chances. So there's opportunities to improve. You just need to know what to do. And I like to help people do that.
So if someone has had setbacks, which I like that,
Okay.
setbacks, if they've had setbacks, how long does it take for them to get like back in the game or back on board?
For sure. Everybody's credit profile is a little bit different, so it's specific to them. But in terms of, let's say if somebody had a short sale or a foreclosure, you can be a homeowner again in as short as 3 years. If you're a veteran, then it's even shorter than that. It's up to 2 years.
So there's different situations. So it's really an individual situation. And you look at each person individually.
Most
Which is
definitely.
very different, I think, than most financial establishments. They kind of put a series of situations together, numbers. They're really big on numbers together, and it has to fall within a certain range. Isn't that right?
That is right. And while the guidelines and the rules are there's standard guidelines and boxes, every family, every household member, every individual, they have different unique things to them, and that's my job, to understand their unique things, help them fit into whatever mortgage makes sense for them, but then also explain to them what the differences are between the programs. So again, they're making the best decision for themselves, short-term and long-term. And I think that's the one thing that not everybody looks at, is they just want to make a sale at times. It's not about a sale. It's about helping people out and making them feel inspired, making them feel good, and then raising their family. There's nothing like being a homeowner. And if you mind if I share a story?
No, go ahead.
It was probably one of the most impactful closings I went to, and that's one of the other unique things I do is I attend all my closings. And typically it's just to be there, again, to thank them at the end and to make them feel comfortable and make them feel confident. But my customer, Alex, she just expressed after we were done, she said, everything worked out the way it was expected. She appreciated that. And then she just went on to say that nobody in her family had ever owned a home before, and she was the first one. She talked about how, growing up as a kid and not having the same home or moving a lot. And now she had, it was her and her husband, and then they had 2 little boys. She was so excited about, I have a house. My boys are going to have a house. This is just going to mean the world to me. It means the world to them. I mean, it set me back. I was just like, oh my gosh, I don't need a tissue. I need to get out of here before I lose it, because I was just like, this is why I do what I do. This is what gets me out of bed. This is what makes me excited. This is what makes me want to help more people. So that was just awesome. That is what the job is. That is what impact you can do on people. So
Wow.
That's what I love to do.
That's amazing. It's funny you should mention that, because when I was working in CNBC in New York, there was a camera guy there that I used to talk to a lot, and really nice guy. And he said to me one day, he said, you know what? I grew up in the tenement in the Bronx. He said, nobody I knew had a house. He said, we turned the TV on and we'd see the kids playing in the yard and this nice living room and all this. He said, we lived in a 2-bedroom apartment in the projects. He said, it was like a world away owning a home. He said, I never knew anybody who did it. I didn't know people that had that type of life. And he owned his own home. So, and I remember him talking about it
Yeah.
with such pride. So it really does make a huge difference in your life.
Most definitely, most definitely. It's just, another customer, they talked about, they used a first-time home buyer program, which allows them to have low money out of pocket. But she had told myself and our agent that we worked with that her daughter, for the first time, is making friends, is so happy. And they had changed cities and changed schools, but it was just like having that, and she equated it to being in a home, having something that is consistent, having something they know they're going to come back to day in and day out, and it's, you know, it's theirs. They're not sharing walls. It's their own house, and that's why I am so passionate about it. That's why I'm so excited.
Well, that's great. And I find that this is such an important topic because people who tend to live in apartments, I think, are more in flux, or, you know, rent are more in flux, and you can really change your life by owning a home. So now I want to get into details.
Okay.
All right? I'm going to hold your feet to the flames now.
Please do.
What is it that we need to do to prepare for the process of maybe coming to you or someone like you? What do we need to do?
Great question. I would just recommend, in general, that to be prepared is you get your standard financial documents in order. That's going to be your pay stubs, your W-2s, your tax returns, any asset statement. So that's specifically your banking, checking, savings, 401ks, any of those what are called liquid assets. Those are the type of documents to make sure all of your information is accurate. I've probably seen, or, you know, between originating or managing over 100,000 transactions over the course of my 20-year career. And one of the biggest mistakes I've seen people make is just by having inaccurate information up front, not having all of the information up front. And to me, that ties to the loan officer of making sure they're asking all the proper questions. But those are the things that customers can do, is just making sure they have all the information. And one of the things I always say, I teach some first-time homebuyer classes, is making sure they tell their story. Tell their story if they ever had a job gap, had a credit setback, whatever it is. Want to make sure that they tell their story. Because at the end of the day, the underwriters, they're kind of the gatekeepers that can determine if the loan's approved or not. They're human beings and they understand people have setbacks, but you want to make sure you tell people what transpired and, you know, what specific issue happened, what you've been doing to remedy it, and how you're going to do your darndest to make sure it never happens again.
So are there some blanket things that people could do maybe to improve their credit? Like, are there just like certain tips that you could give if you think you maybe have bad credit with this, or, you know, maybe you've had a setback? Are there things that across the board people could do?
Across the board, yeah. So number one, make your payments on time. That's important. Number two, make sure you reviewed your credit. So there's ways to get your credit for free. Annualcreditreport.com is one of them.
Okay.
Again, I offer free credit review myself. When it comes to credit, 30% of your credit is based off of revolving credit utilization, credit card debt. So the key to that is to make sure that you keep those balances as low as possible. 20% is probably a good range. 10% you're going to get your maximum points. But one of the specific things I recommend to my customers is this, is that once a year, and it's something I did years back because I was in the industry, I would contact my credit card company and ask them to increase my credit limit without pulling my credit, because they'll do that because they know what your credit score is already. But what I did is I was able to increase it to a limit that typically, no matter what my balance is, I was always going to be in that lower percentage.
So when you're talking about 10%, you're talking about using 10% of your available credit?
That's correct.
Oh, okay.
So on a $1,000 credit limit, you'd want your balance at $100 or less.
Okay.
And again, this isn't day in and day out, but let's say you know you're going to plan on buying a car or purchasing a house 3 to 4 months from now. Those are the specific things you can do to plan ahead, which is why I always recommend my customers, let's talk now so we can have a very good strategy to make sure you're maximizing your score, which is going to impact your rates, your mortgage insurance, a lot of things. For example, did you know that just the difference between a 720 credit score and a 719 credit score can cost, on a $200,000 loan, can cost as much as $1,000 for 1 point?
Really?
Isn't that crazy?
Wow, that is crazy. So, okay, let's fast forward, because now we're doing this show in December.
Yep.
And I want to fast forward to the spring rush, okay, especially here in Minnesota. People are probably going to wait until April to start preparing for the purchase in May or June, okay? What can people do now in December so they're more prepared for their April, May, June purchase?
It's a great question. You can call me. Sure.
Okay, awesome.
Check out my website. So those are just opportunities. But again, I would highly recommend that they take the time right now to do the due diligence to get the information. Because again, what happens is, I just think of myself. I've been thinking, I want to do this. I'm like, but I haven't searched out the information or found it, or had found anybody to hold my hand. I like that, so which is what I try to provide. But it's just getting that information, because then the more knowledge you have of what's my payment going to be, what are some things I can do to improve that over the next 3 to 4 months, you're just more inclined to take advantage now. Rates are at historic lows. The market has been consistently appreciating over the last 3+ years. So, now is a great time to buy. Typically it's always a good time to buy, but I would say now more than ever is a good time to buy. One other comment I would make, you had mentioned the springtime. The other thing I always recommend is, just as a strategy or as a rule of life, is I like to do things when others aren't.
Yes.
I like to grocery shop late at night or early in the morning, and if other people are not purchasing in the winter months, because it's typically not the best time because it's cold out, well, that means I'm going to have less competition as a buyer. So I'm going to maybe come across a wonderful opportunity that a lot of people are on the sidelines, so I'm ready to get it now.
And a lot of very successful people use that strategy. A lot. Donald Trump talks about that strategy a lot. You go against what the crowd is doing,
Correct.
and then you're calling the shots. So it gives you more opportunity to find exactly what you want and maybe pay a little bit less.
Correct.
So what are things, this is all really great information, I want to tell you.
Thank you
This is
very
really
much.
fabulous. You're doing a wonderful job. For your first time, you're doing a great job. What are the things not to do? Like, absolutely try to avoid doing A, B, and C. What are 3 things that you recommend people don't do?
Number one, I'd recommend don't make any purchases. If it's not necessary, don't open any new credit cards. Again, if it's not necessary, I'd say ideally do not open those new credit cards. Don't miss a payment. You don't want to do that at all. Don't miss a payment. And generally speaking, when it comes to employment, you can change jobs if it's your base salary job and it's going to stay the same or improve. But don't go from a base salary job to a 100% commission job. That's going to be an issue.
Oh, okay.
Because there's certain things when it comes to income, if it's not your standard base hourly income, you need a 2-year history of it. So commission jobs, high bonus jobs, those typically, or self-employment, require more specific guidelines.
All right, so I don't know if you can answer this question.
Yes.
But I'm going to go there. If you can't answer it, it's
Okay.
okay. What about gifts? Like, I know a lot of people, when they are going to buy a house, they say to their parents, it would be really nice if you would give me some of my inheritance now so I can purchase up. What do you think about that?
I think that's a great idea. I would say there's a lot of my first-time homebuyer customers, and not even move-up customers, I would say I tend to see about 20% of them getting gifts, especially when they're living in mom and dad's basement. It makes sense for everybody to help them buy a house and move out of the house. So there's a lot of good reasons to do that.
There could be other words other than gifts used for
Yes.
that, but that's okay.
For sure.
Okay, that's awesome. And it's not a negative reflection on the person who's purchasing then?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. It's standard, one of the standard requirements, allowable requirements for
Okay.
gift funds.
Okay, awesome. Now, how can we get in touch with you? And what should we be asking you for when we do get in touch with you?
Great question. So call me. My phone number is 763-270-4822. That's my office phone, which I typically always roll to my cell phone because I want to be available when my customers need me. And then what should you be available? Just having some basic information. That's most of the personal information people know, their name, social security number, date of birth. And then just their income. So we always look at, gross income, knowing what your hourly wage is. It's actually kind of crazy. People are so used to automation now. I'll ask them, what do you get paid? And they're like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It just goes into my bank account. And those are, again, those step back opportunities to say, well, let's take a look. Let's make sure you feel confident about your budget and make sure we're going down the right path on numbers. So they do have confidence. So ideally they don't have setbacks. Or when they do have setbacks, we already have a plan B in place for when that happens.
I want to tell you, I'm seeing a general theme of this show, and it's start now so you can be better prepared. I mean, if I had to say, to encapsulate all the information that I've gotten from you now and also in your office, it's start now so you have no surprises, so you're able to manage the things that need to be managed, get the helping hand that you need, but don't be afraid. Even if you've had setbacks, if you've had, issues, don't be afraid. Come in, let's set the time, and let's get this done. Because people let this hold them back. They let their fear, in not only this, but other things, let their fear hold them back. But we can change. They can change their life through a little bit of help. What's your website?
It's A Kozlak, Kozlak, .cmgfi.com.
Okay, perfect. I want to thank you for being on the show. I have learned so much, as I always do from being with you. This is wonderful, and I hope that you've learned also. So thank you so much for being
Thank
here.
you, Laura. Can I do one more thing? I promised
Sure.
if I was ever on air, I'd do one thing.
Sure.
Okay. Hi, Mom. That was the one thing.
Isn't that cute? All right, so I hope you've enjoyed this show and gotten as much information as I have. It's been wonderful. Lori Flecken from Soltar Solutions, thank you so much for tuning into Focus Forward, and tune in again. Bye-bye now.